Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Business Growth Show, where we talk about all components of business and how to utilize them for exponential growth. My name is Athin Cassiois. I'm a business growth expert where I help business owners grow and scale to create wealth and freedom. And today, I have an awesome guest. His name is Faisal Abid, and he's a trailblazer with a mission to establish the baseline of his technological endeavors and assert his thought leadership. And his journey is marked by dual experiences, his profound tenure within Google, and his disruptive innovation within his current role as co-founder and CTO of Eirene Cremations. And Faisal's narrative defies conventions, tracing back to his decision to step away from university and leap into business. And his initial venture post-university didn't flourish, but the experience was a pivotal lesson in comprehending business holistically beyond the realm of technology. And navigating these challenges, he stood resilience and shaped his unconventional path. Welcome, Faisal and Abid, and thank you for being on my show.
Thank you for inviting me. That is a fantastic intro. That's amazing. I don't think anyone's introed me so well. I love it.
You're very welcome, mate. I've had a bit of practice with intros, and
that's great.
If you want, you can take that intro and use it for something else if you like.
I think I will. That's good. That's going to be my entrance music. So I love it.
You're welcome, mate. Happy to help wherever I can. And yeah, it's awesome to have you on the show. I'm sure it's going to be great for everyone watching and listening today. And firstly, you're a very successful entrepreneur. So for those people who don't know who you are, please introduce yourself by telling us about you and your journey.
I don't know about very successful, but we've done some cool stuff. So I mean, yeah, like you said, my entrepreneurial journey, like right now, I am the co-founder and CTO of Eirene. We've been running that since about 2019. It's been quite an interesting adventure, navigating a lot of regulatory hurdles, building a technology company in the space of death care where like there's no technology companies. Like we like to say, we're a tech company where the first product is cremation. And so kind of getting to that point, and if you just rewind back to about 10 or 15 years ago, whenever I was 18, and I decided, like you said, to drop out of university. And that was a big decision. Imagine telling that to your parents that, hey, I got into such a cool university. I was McMaster University. I was there for a year. Android came out, and I was like, I think there's stuff to be built in Android. Maybe I'll start a business there. I didn't know a single thing about what it means to run a business. All I knew was that, which is actually a big mistake a lot of entrepreneurs make, is I'm going to build something cool, which doesn't necessarily translate into a business. So anyways, I did that. Eventually, that didn't work out after 2 years. And, there was times where I was paying myself like $200 a month, but I was lucky enough to be living with my parents. And so it wasn't that big of a struggle, but the struggle was more of a mental struggle of like, the business is failing, the technology is there, but why wouldn't anyone use it? How do I even get anyone to use it? Because I didn't know how to market. And so it's hard being a founder. And then I said, okay, you know what? I need to make money. So I'm going to go join a startup. And I didn't technically join a startup. I joined a pretty big company. It was 300 people at the time, but it was an ebook company called Kobo. And so I joined Kobo, which was great because what I needed to learn during my initial phase was, how do I work with the team? How do I work with managers? How do I manage people? And at Kobo, I got to learn the whole thing. I joined as like an intermediate engineer, funny enough, not even a junior, just because I had some experience, but I quickly moved up to whatever roles they had, senior plus. And then I said, great, I've learned how to do that. Now it's time to work at an even smaller startup. And so I joined a startup with just like 10 people. And I learned how to kind of build a startup that way with a successful founder that kind of leading the way. And so I was employee number 10. So I've been doing that a lot while running projects on the side, some of them very successful, some of them not successful at all, building a bunch of stuff in crypto. And eventually my co-founder and I stumbled on this idea for Eirene, where we were like, this makes a lot of sense. Her background, her father was a funeral director, so she grew up with death care. I saw death care in Japan, and very uniquely, and I was like, why don't we kind of take this idea of death care, and we both know how to build tech companies. Let's start a tech company where our first product is cremation. And that's how it all came to be.
Yeah, awesome, man. Love the story. And I can relate a bit, not exactly the same, but similar, where I dropped out of high school in my final year,
Oh, that's
before.
great.
And
Wow, that's amazing.
and so I love the stories of people that have dropped out, have gone the unconventional method, whether it's high
Yeah,
school or uni, and then
yeah.
work their own way, with experience, and going through some
That's
challenges.
what it is. Like the whole purpose, you should only drop out if you are. Well, first of all, I don't recommend dropping out to anybody. I think it feels stupid for me to say that, but at the same time, it's very, very risky, and I consider myself very lucky, because the reason you drop out is you have a very concrete vision, and you have the ability to like learn. But that's what university is there for, high school is there for, is teaching you how to learn. And so if you kind of don't know how to learn, um, it doesn't mean that you won't be successful. It means that you need to learn how to learn. And so that's what you learn in university. So if you can do that, then you can be successful.
Yeah, love it, mate. So true. Always be learning, as we should, as we keep growing, and moving forward. So, you were a Google developer expert, right? With over 12 years experience in Google Cloud, which is awesome, right? Still going strong with obviously Google being a massive player in the world. So
Yeah.
just tell us a bit more about your experience
Yeah.
here, and how it shaped you as well.
Yeah, Google's actually a pretty very good company. It's interesting because while never working deeply inside of Google as an engineer, I've worked as work in quotes as a Google developer expert, which means that Google says I am responsible enough, and they see me as a leader to talk about Google products. And so I've gone to all these conferences worldwide, given a lot of talks on Google, done a bunch of consulting for Google as well, actually, and like even for the internal projects or external projects. And so it's been interesting seeing how Google works from both the inside and the outside, and how much of Google is still very startup-y. Like it always shocks me. So there's this product called Flutter, and I'm a Google developer expert for Flutter. And so when I speak to the Flutter product manager when it was just being formed, what I learned was it's not like the team just somewhere, the CEO of Google said, let's create Flutter. That's not how it happened. It's like a team basically created a startup inside of Google and pitched it around. And the way the story's been told to me is it gets pitched around, and they go to other teams. So like I'll go walk up to another team and I'll say, hey, we're thinking of building a framework to build mobile apps with just one code base. Are you interested? Do you think this would be useful? Blah, blah, blah. They ask a bunch of questions, just like you would if you were an entrepreneur, right? There's this famous book called The Mom Test, where instead of actually telling them, do you need this? It would be like, what are your problems? What are the challenges you're facing? Tell me about your day-to-day issues with mobile development, and then kind of uncovering the real problem. And so Google product managers essentially do that. And then they realize that, okay, great, this is a product we should build. And then that gets escalated up and there's approvals and stuff. But it's very interesting to me how the genesis of ideas are. And I think that's why Google's been able to be so successful. And so whenever I've worked with Google Cloud, I've been working with Google Cloud since it launched essentially. And when I talk about Flutter, these days I talk a lot about large language models and AI. I'm always fascinated that like Google's able to innovate so quickly. Not that I get paid by Google, like I am like, just my trips are expensed because I'm flying around and talking about Google, but it's not like they're paying me for any of this. It's just very interesting because they build good products, so I'm passionate about it.
Yeah, awesome, man. Love that. Good to hear your experience there, and how you've been able to become that expert and go to a lot of different things, and work a lot of different projects, which is very cool. So let's talk a bit more about Eirene Cremations now, because you've taken something that is a challenging situation, let's call it, and you've put some tech and a bit more into this. So do you want to just tell us a bit more about how it came about and how you're I guess changing the way things are done there?
Yeah. So what's very interesting about death care, specifically funeral homes, is that funeral homes haven't specifically changed at all in the past, I don't know, 500 years or whatever. If you think about your great grandparents or great great grandparents, when they passed away, someone had to go to a funeral home. They talked to a funeral director. The funeral director, sold them on the entire package, whatever that may be, and then the funeral happens and people come to a funeral home and they watch it, whether it's a cremation, burial, doesn't matter, same type of process. But the world has changed so much. The way people deal with death has changed so much. The cremation rates are rising, and the way the millennials and Generation X and even the baby boomers and stuff, the way they deal with death in this modern context is very different. A lot of people don't want to go to a funeral home and have a ceremony there. They want to have a celebration of life in their own safe space. Or, if someone lost their mother, they want to go to the cottage where the mother spent most of her time and have a nice, an event there, a celebration of life where they share stories and, all the friends come. So more and more people want that. COVID basically accelerated a lot of this behavior. But then what people also want is they want to be able to go and grieve without having to drive around, talk to other funeral homes, call a bunch of funeral homes up. And so we've seen a lot of these problems in other tech companies that we've been part of or we've helped build, which is people want convenience, people want affordability, and people want high quality. And so how do you take all that and apply that to death care? And that's where Eirene comes from. It's this idea that we can provide a high quality, affordable, and very convenient way of you planning someone's arrangements, or even planning your own arrangements for the future. You can do this just by calling us or going online. Now, what's very interesting about this is where the technology plays in, because, from a user-facing point of view, we want the technology is all hidden. We don't want you having to install a mobile app or whatever. That's just nonsense. What we want to do is you need to go back to your family. You need to go grieve. Like, this is your personal time. You don't want to be messing around with all these tech tools. So if you call us or if you go online, it's a 3-step form. You fill it out, you check out, or you can call us and you can talk to our licensed funeral director 24/7. What happens after is what's very interesting. Because of our experience building a lot of technology and NLP, natural language parsing, and just understanding how to take human language, natural language, and convert that into something that's actionable, we're able to take phone calls and what the user is speaking on the phone, the customer, we're able to take all that and automatically populate forms with it that get signed, that the funeral director has to just review and approve. This saves a lot of time. We've built an entire system called Funeral OS that there's so much automation and basically a lot of intelligence built into this, so that the funeral director can spend more time focused on the family, providing the family what they need, and letting the technology automate everything, and then giving it to the funeral director and saying, please review all of this information. Is this correct? Make any changes. The funeral director goes, looks at everything, signs off. Once it's signed off, the whole process starts. And so that's how Eirene came to be, and that's how it works behind the scenes.
Yeah, awesome, mate. Love that. So powerful, and love how you're doing things automatically. And I think that's where things are going now, right? Like, tech-driven disruption, as you would call it, right, is happening a lot in industries. Some industries have changed a lot. Some are in the process of changing. So do you want to talk a little bit more about what you're seeing right there out in the market where tech is really changing industries, right? And what's being disrupted now, what we should be looking out for?
The buzzword of the year is AI. And when I say AI, I just don't mean language model. I think everyone right now takes a look at AI and automatically thinks this is ChatGPT or Palm or whatever. What I'm talking about is machine learning and AI, and writing code that understands user behavior and is able to adapt to it. So what's very interesting is with the explosion of AI and ML in the past 5 years, you're able to take industries that typically don't think about technology and able to apply it. Like there's a lot of secret sauce in Funeral OS, but let's just talk about one of them, which is the phone call example that I just talked about. You wouldn't be able to do this 10, 20 years. We have models that are so advanced, and because we have phone calls from 3, 4 years all recorded, we're able to train our own ML model and our own voice detection model to be able to actually parse out what the customer is saying in these unique contexts, right? Like the loved one's name, the hospital that they're at, where they should be picked up from, XYZ. There's a bunch of factors that we have built and fine-tuned our algorithms for that we can hear, but that's our cutting edge secret sauce there. And so there's so many industries like this that are just sitting on a whole treasure trove of data that if they apply the right tooling and they apply the right algorithms to it, you can make it happen. And what's really neat is this stuff isn't rocket science. This stuff is complicated for sure, but it's not like you're going to write a research paper for it. A lot of this stuff is understanding the engineering and understanding the context of which you want to apply the technology. So many people, and this goes back to me starting my first business, think that just building something like a cool piece of tech is it solving a business problem. It's not. It's understanding the business problem and finding that cool piece of tech that you can retrofit into your business problem and getting that accelerated.
Yeah, awesome, man. Thanks for sharing that. And yeah, definitely love these topics. And do you want to maybe talk about just a little bit more about AI? Because obviously it's a big topic now, about some of the things that we should be wary about as well. People aren't thinking about, right? It's like, sometimes, what some of the information that we're putting into the AIs or different platforms and things like that about just so that people are aware of the other side of potential risks and things like that. But then also there's obviously a lot of benefits and what the potential of it is out there in different types that we can be using as well.
Garbage in, garbage out. Like the AI is not a human or sentient or has a human brain or some sort of algorithmic brain that is actually thinking and critical thinking and deep introspection. The AI is stupid out of the box. You are giving it data. It is looking at this data. It is understanding patterns and it's producing an output. In the simplest example of ChatGPT, it is, or Google's Palm, it's being trained on the internet's data, like so much data. So all that data came in, there's an algorithm that runs and some data goes out. Does that mean that the data that goes out is correct? No, it means that there's data going out based on the inputs. And so the dangerous thing about AI is relying on it blindly without understanding how it works. I have seen a lot of people fall in this trap of, for example, I am starting a new, say, laptop company, right? And I want to understand, I want to know what are top 10 things customers are looking for when buying a laptop. Now, there's two ways of doing this. The correct way, which is going out and doing market research, talking to people, figuring out who your correct market is, looking at industry data, but knowing that that data also was synthesized from somewhere. So getting to the raw numbers, right? Or there's the easy way, which you can do by going on ChatGPT or any of these, or Bard or any of these, and saying, tell me 10 things consumers are looking for when trying to buy a laptop. It's going to give you 10 things. Those 10 things are going to be very plausible, but those 10 things, there's a very, very high likelihood are not correct. There's various factors of why those 10 things were generated, but it doesn't mean it's right. And a lot of people are taking that at face value and going, wow, that saved me so much time from research. Like, it's like the analogous of, I can read a book, a 300-page book, or I can read one paragraph summary. I might get the same information, right? The paragraph summary might tell me what's going to be in the book, and I'm like, yeah, you know what? That makes a lot of sense. Give me some facts. but it does not mean that I understand the conclusions it came to, or why that paragraph, why that summary, why the book comes to that conclusion. And so the AI is no excuse. When I say AI specifically in this context, we're talking about language models. The language models is no excuse for you not doing research or just trusting it blindly. And even AI in general, there was when Apple launched their credit card a couple of years ago, I think actually it was just 2 years ago, there was someone who kept getting rejected. I think this was a prominent tech person, and I think it was either him or his wife kept getting rejected, but despite being probably multimillionaires. And it was very interesting because there's no way to introspect, or at least at that time, there's no way to introspect the black box algorithm of why this person was being rejected, because Apple had trained their approval process for credit cards on whatever data, but making that explainable is very hard. There's a whole field of research called XAI, or explainable AI, that is built around the idea of the AI has trained on some data and it's produced some black box algorithm. How do we understand what that algorithm is so it is fair, correct, and factual?
Yeah, awesome, man. Love that, right? So yeah, don't take it for face value, just making sure that you're delving deeper or putting the right prompts in, like you were saying, right? Giving it more context so that you get better information.
Even putting the right context and prompts in will produce an answer, but it's not going to produce a factual answer. It is going to produce an answer that may look factual. And so you still need to do the hard research of actually talking to people or researching on Google, Bing, whatever you use, looking at the raw data. And then you can take that raw data and synthesize it into something meaningful. Like imagine you had a spreadsheet with all these numbers, and you can then take that spreadsheet and paste it into ChatGPT and say, summarize this. And then you can take that summary and then you can present it to someone, like an executive or someone higher up, that you can say, here's what we think should sell this laptop. Now, if that person says, well, show me your data, you can then pull out your spreadsheet and say, here's all the research we did to come to this conclusion. Versus if someone says, well, show me why you think these are the 10 factors why a consumer will buy a laptop, you're going to be like, what? Because ChatGPT told me? That's nonsense.
Yeah, I love that. The combination, right? Using it for certain processes, but making sure you're putting that element and everything in there. So powerful. Love that. Let's talk about, because a lot of people here, they're probably not as technical as you naturally, right? But maybe they want to start a new tech business, right? Whether it's AI or not, there, and they really want to, do something, but maybe they're not highly technical. So what should we be thinking about, right? If we're going to start this business, could potentially have a co-founder, obviously that's more technical, but I guess from an overall strategy perspective of, how to actually go upon this of creating some sort of tech business.
Finding the right problem to solve. When my co-founder Mallory and I were building Eirene, we didn't think about the technology first. What we thought about was, what is the problem we're looking to solve? We went out to these events called death cafes, where people talk about death and their relationship with death. We spoke to a lot of customers trying to understand, what is it are they looking for? Because it could have been that everyone loves funeral homes and they have no problem driving up to a funeral home. And sure, that could have been it. If we would have just built a website, we would have never kind of understood if that was a problem or not, right? We would have just wondered, maybe something wrong with our website. So the technology is a medium. You need to figure out the industry you want to work in. So the best industries to work in are the ones that you are currently in, that you have a lot of domain expertise in, or you're working with someone that has domain expertise in, or you have an into that industry. Like you need some sort of unfair advantage. Like to give you an example, when I was working at this company Zoom, we were basically building ChatGPT in 2017, 2018. We were not building ChatGPT as it is now. We were building a version of it that was specifically designed to work as a virtual assistant. And the company ultimately did not work out, and they pivoted and they had a successful exit. But the reason why that product didn't work out was it was really cool tech, but it did not solve a problem. We did not have any industry domain insights because it was for virtual assistants. None of us had ever worked as a virtual assistant. The CEO hadn't, no product managers. There was no virtual assistant on the team that could even guide the team. There was no one that actually ever had a virtual assistant to even say, oh yeah, as a CEO, me working with an assistant, these are the biggest problems, right? And so we were just building the technology because it was cool and the product demos were cool. We were able to raise money on it. We used to say, hey, Ava, go book a meeting with Faisal, and Ava or Ethin or whatever we called the assistant would reach out and say, hey, Faisal wants to book a meeting with you, all that stuff. That was really cool, but was that useful? And so the point I'm trying to make is it's very important you forget about technology. And it's probably in a lot of ways a blessing to your viewers if they don't understand technology in a way where they're like, I'm going to start programming it. A lot of times what I have to do is take a step back, and I've gotten much better at that over the last like 5-6 years, is I don't code it first. I will start to think deeply about the problem, and I will talk to people about the problem. And that's really how Eirene came to be, where when I had learned about how they were dealing with death care in Japan, I didn't come back and started working on it and trying to build something. I was like, that's an interesting idea. And it was just in the back of my mind. I spoke to a couple of people. I didn't think much of it till I found the right person to build a business with that was also thinking about this idea from her background. And so you have to really understand the problem. Once you've understood the problem and you know this is a problem, that's when you can build a technology team around it, whether you hire a CTO or like they're your first engineer, or you find someone that you can build a business with. That is step 2. But step 1 is actually finding a problem that you can solve, that you want to solve.
Yeah, awesome, man. Love that. So powerful, that problem solution thinking, and then building it out thereafter from there. So love that. Awesome stuff. Now, let's say we want to take our business to the next level, right? And yes, we need a team a lot of the time to do things, but a lot of the time we can, automate things, or we can make it more efficient with technology, right? So what are some ways in business that we can leverage technology to really accelerate, our business further?
I mean, in what context? Like, there's so much technology that there's actually an overwhelming amount of technology. So, I mean, this is hard because there's actually so much technology that you can utilize. Like, you don't have to spend a lot of money. The thing is, when you're testing an idea, yes, there are ideas that you need loads and loads of money, like millions of dollars to even get out of the ground. And those are usually hardware companies or very industries like, I don't know, like nuclear power plants, whatever. You need like $1 billion to even try the idea, like building a nuclear reactor. But for most 90% of ideas, I believe, don't quote me on 90%, but for majority of ideas, you don't need a lot of money. What you need is someone willing to help you out, or you learn it yourself. Programming is not that hard, but I'm not recommending all your viewers to learn programming, but you can hack together an MVP. And when you get to an MVP, you can utilize technology that's already out there to kind of support this MVP. You can use Google Cloud to get your stuff hosted very cheaply, like for like free, basically. You can use Cloudflare to get a domain name for like $5. You can use Gmail to get email working. There's all these tools that basically do like 99% of the work for you. And so you can continue to focus on the problem. You don't have to like reinvent the wheel everywhere. You can just focus on the problem, have all these companies that are there and all these SaaS subscriptions that you're paying basically $5, $6, $7 a month, do all the work for you while you try to problem solve.
Yeah, awesome, man. Love that. And just for everybody that doesn't know, MVP is minimum viable product. So that's what you create first.
Yeah. Yeah.
Make sure that it actually is worth it. And then you can do some user testing and things like that.
And the MVP, just for your viewers, the MVP does not have to look cool, does not need a grand launch. Do not waste money having a launch party, unless you're building a dating app. Then you're trying to get people together and get them drunk. But unless that one specific context, you do not need a party. Your MVP should basically be, like, I'll tell you about Irene's MVP. We had built the MVP, and the MVP was needed for regulatory, because we had to apply for a license, but the MVP was built within like a week, right? Because it didn't have all the backend automation and AI and ML and any of that. The MVP, like the first cremation we had, we did everything by hand, like a traditional funeral home. Why? Because the company was not trying to solve the tech problem. The company was trying to solve, is this a problem for the user? And as families came through our funeral home, Eirene, and they knew that we were a funeral home, and they said, okay, as they started going through it, after like the first 5, when we knew we had a business, we had not raised any money. We were basically not paying ourselves. I think we had friends and family money of like, I don't know, something very tiny. But as soon as we had customers that were paying, that had paid, and they gave us a good review and good feedback, that is when we knew that the MVP was successful, because that was the metric we had set. We knew the MVP was successful, and that's when we invested time and money into building technology and setting us apart to be able to scale up, right? Because you can build all the cool, and this is where so many founders fall into this trap. They build all the technology to be so scalable and so quote unquote cool that like, wow, this is amazing and it's going to scale up to 1 billion users. And I did this when I was 18, when I built my first business, where I built the most amazing scalable system. And I've seen entrepreneurs who have hired offshore engineering teams to go, hey, or even onshore engineering teams to go, hey, build me this. And they say, yeah, it's going to be 3 months, cost $100,000. It's going to scale up to 1 million users. You're like, fantastic. But then you launch, and do you have 1 million users? No. You might not have 1 million users in the next 5 years, but your app, so why did you waste all that time and money building for 1 million users when you only had one, and that one user didn't even like your idea? Like that user came in, used it, and said, and left. And so what happens at that point? You have to pivot. And when you pivot, well, if you spent 100K building one version of the product, changing all that is going to cost another 50, 100K. And so now you're just burning money, or you're burning time if you did it yourself. And so that's what I did when I was 18 and 19. I burned basically 2 years building and rebuilding over and over again for that 1 million users. But like I said, for Eirene, we just built for one family. We wanted that one customer to have the best experience. Like, we care about each single family so much that first experience, everything had to be hands, like completely manual, because we wanted that family to have the best experience. Now we have a lot of families that go through our system. Not that the automation makes it any less impersonal, any less personal. We personalize every experience, but we've learned how to automate all the back-end paperwork and like all this other stuff that we do, so that we can give that extra personal touch to each family, because that's our secret sauce. That's how we're able to allow our funeral directors to talk to the families while technology deals with all the non-personal stuff.
Yeah, love that. So true. I've heard many stories. I was just at a business event the other week, and heard someone had been building this app themselves for 5 years. and someone very successful looked at it and just said, that's not going to work because of A, B, C, D, E, right? And you just wasted all this time, for the idea.
It's funny being in the death business, basically death care, and you realize that life is very short. You can basically die any day. And so if you think about the amount of ideas that are out there, how short your life is, you have to either never sleep and just work endlessly, and then you will die very quick because you won't be sleeping or eating, or you have to try build one idea and take this moonshot of going, you know what, I'm going to dedicate the next 10 years of my life building one idea, which in your case, the example you said, this gentleman or a woman spent 5 years working on this idea, and then the idea is not good anymore. That's 5 years where they could have tried 50 different ideas while trying this MVP method, the minimum viable, where you talk to a user, they like the idea, yes. That way you can iterate. There's been so many ideas that I have spoken to customers about that turn out that it's not going to work, where I thought it's going to be the best idea. And so the difference between being right and wrong is like, there's no difference in you thinking you're right and thinking you're wrong till you're actually proven that you're wrong. And so a lot of times you're like, well, you know what, I think I'm right, even if you're wrong, because you haven't been proven you're wrong. So the quicker you're proven wrong, the better. It's nice to be right. And when you're right, you have a successful business, but 99% of the time you're going to be wrong. And so it's really important you're proven wrong by talking to customers, by doing market research, and not asking ChatGPT to do your market research, but like actually asking customers, and understanding if this is a problem you want to spend the next 5 years worth of your life or 10 years devoting yourself to, because it's the right idea.
Yeah. Love it, mate. So true. So powerful on getting that happening quickly, and then hitting the right one when it happens. And so much gold's been shared today, Faisal. It's been awesome. And I guess as we're starting to wrap up today, what one key piece of advice would you like to give to all the entrepreneurs watching and listening today?
There is never a better time to get started than today. Even if the economy is garbage and all sorts of stuff's happening, if you have a 9-to-5 job and you are paid well, that you have the ability to devote 1 hour of your day to build a business, 2 hours of your day to build a business, then do it. Like, there's been so many times, like even when Eirene was starting, that I was doing a lot of consulting and I was working other places because we didn't have money for Eirene, right? Like, we just had to kind of, I hate this word, but kind of grind for a bit till you get the idea working. And so you just have to make those bit of sacrifices. Sometimes a lot of founders will say, well, I'm just gonna wait till I leave my job, then I'll start a business. But you don't have to. You can do it today. You should be able to do it today. And so if you have the ability to, the financial ability to, then start the business. Or in your mind, set a goal that I want to save $50,000 in the next year, and then I will start working on my business, right? But start on it ASAP.
Yeah, so true. Completely agree with that. The quicker you start, the quicker you get moving and growing it from there. Don't wait till
and don't fall in love with your ideas. Like, know that your first idea is going to be wrong, second idea is going to be wrong, but the faster you try those ideas, you're more likely to be right. Yeah,
love that. So true. And we connected through our network, so I learned about your awesome journey from being a Google developer expert to over 12 years of expertise in Google Cloud to being now the co-founder and CTO of Eirene Cremations. Awesome guy, so knowledgeable around the tech side as well as a business, and I'm sure you continue to establish the baseline of your technological endeavors to assert your thought leadership and helping everybody out there that needs it. Very grateful that we connected and look forward to working with you. So Faisal, how can people find you and get in contact with you?
I'm on LinkedIn. That's the best. Twitter or whatever it's called now is garbage. So just find me on LinkedIn, Faisal Abid, and I'll send me an invite.
Awesome, guys. Definitely checking me out on LinkedIn and connect. So knowledgeable, and yeah, if needing obviously help with your process around death, which is a challenging time, but make it a lot easier and simpler, then definitely check him out. With Eirene Cremations as well, and that powerful process of what happens there. And so thanks, mate, and thank you for everyone for watching, listening to this show where we talk about everything on business growth. And please like, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review. And you can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube as Athin Cassiois, or visit my website, athincassiois.com. If you want to grow and scale your business, you can reach out to me on any platform to see if we're a good fit. I completely agree with you, or do I? The only way you know is if you tune in next time. So until next time, remember that our business grows when we learn skills and take action using them in spite of fear. So remember to design your growth and results.